Hello, welcome to this week's Back to the City. Today I'm very happy to have my very good friend, Darren Jackson, Kid Dakota, in the studio with me. You're on the cusp of releasing your newest record, which is Praegustator.
Correct, yes.
Correct pronunciation?
Yeah, good job.
Excellent. And then that's going to be at Ice House on Friday, 5th of July. Who else is on that bill?
Phoenix Dion and Dylan Sulphur.
Mm-hmm. I like both of those.
Yeah.
And I particularly like this record. We're good friends. We used to live together.
Yes.
Full disclosure. But
We've
Kid
known
Dakota
each other for a long time.
Yeah, Kid Dakota was a favorite local band of mine before all of that. We were first in the same room when I was a Cambridge student watching Low, and I think that tour with Low began at that Cambridge
That was
venue.
the first show, yeah.
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah.
2005.
And we met much, much later.
Yeah, yeah.
In my old house when we did our first Back to the City interview.
It's funny that we were in the same space, though.
Mm-hmm.
So much earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember liking the opening act.
Yeah, you're like, these guys are not bad.
The new record is excellent. Let's begin with the title and focus on the title track, which is the opening track.
Mm-hmm.
I looked back at the etymology of the record title, and it comes from pre, meaning before, and gusto, meaning to taste. So to taste or drink beforehand, and the opening lyric is make certain that you taste their food before they eat it, preceded by 1 apple tastes good, 2 peaches taste better, 3 watermelons taste best. How did this track become the title track? And what is the significance of this notion of tasting beforehand to the record as a whole?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, you know more about the etymology of the word than I do, because I didn't really look up the etymology. I don't know how I found that word, but I can't remember. But it went well with one of the themes of the record, I guess, which is sort of like the proletariat always having to make it easier for the wealthy to live the way that they live.
Yeah, I try really hard with my 6 jobs.
Yeah. To make money for other people, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what the song is about. That theme runs through some of the songs, I think, in the album. And how it became the title track. Well, like I said, it's a theme, and I really like that word, Praegustator. Mm-hmm. I like weird record titles. Denervation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think they're kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the best for marketing purposes, like, what does this mean?
In both, it's striking me that before both of our most recent interviews, I had to check what the pronunciation of the of the record title was.
Funny.
But they both fit very well. And I just rewatched the Denervation interview, and with that one, you were highlighting that an unusual thing about that collection of songs was that they all related, apart from Hope, which you had written prior, but conceptually fit in.
Yeah.
They all related to a specific incident in your life, the cycling accident that you had back in 2014, and then the period of convalescence and recovery at your parents'. And so how about with this collection of songs? They do fit together very well in ways that I have some thoughts about and we'll explore.
Nice.
But for you, what is the principle of selecting and uniting these songs for this record?
I guess sonically they seem to stick together. And thematically they're a bit looser. The next record that I'm working on is a collection of very poppy songs. So I had this other collection of songs that were very somber and mostly kind of slower tempos and very heavy, which this record is.
Yep.
So those songs just seemed to sort of coalesce into a pool, and then they became this record.
Yeah. Dogs is a song which I've enjoyed live versions of for some time.
Yeah, we've been playing that for a while.
Dante and Diva are on the back of the record, I believe.
They are, yeah. Dante,
which are Bedlington Terriers.
Yep.
So when I was living with you, then
you were living with them.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
There were the 4 of us.
Yeah.
I've taken those dogs for a walk around
Yeah.
around that block.
Yeah, you have.
So that was a particularly interesting song for me to have known and enjoyed prior to knowing and enjoying walking the dogs, and then to now be knowing and enjoying this studio version. It's Lars is on the drums, of course.
Yep. Lars Osland. Yep.
Yep. The slow BPM of dogs is crucial to
Yeah.
the song. It fits with the vibe of taking the dogs for a walk.
Yeah.
There's a kind of march type feel to it as well.
Yeah.
That solemnity, the way in which we are taking Dante and Diva or dogs for a walk
Yeah.
is with the same sense of gravity that somebody might march.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you to take your dog or the dogs for a walk, and how does that get translated into this studio version of dogs?
Well, walking the dogs is very enjoyable. It's something I like to do. The dogs, they dig it as well, so that's good. So the song is, out of all the songs, it's probably the most happy or upbeat sounding on the album. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. So there's a certain joy in that song. I guess the solemnity is more a result of just kind of the casualness of taking
Yes.
them for a walk.
Well, it's an intentional habit,
Yeah.
I think, and it's one that leads to a sense of serenity.
Yeah.
So the type of joy is not this. In our very first interview, the first time we met, we found ourselves talking about Apollo and Dionysus. So it's not like Dionysus.
No. No,
That's good too.
Yeah.
But there is something that came up when I was revisiting our Denovation interview and it sounds like something I ought to believe, but I can't because I don't. The kind of the claims related to recovery in AA and your skepticism about there being one way to work through and beyond difficulties. The reason why I'm bringing that up now is because taking the dogs for a walk seems to be an intentional habit that is part of your finding peace and serenity and meaning. And there's no set of rules indicating take the dogs for a walk, and that's a road to recovery or to well-being.
Yeah.
That's my sense of it doesn't. I suppose there's nothing solemn about the song, but gravity.
Yeah.
And okay, this is something that I've found that is grounding and meaningful, and the connection that I have with these creatures that I love. Could you expand a bit more on what the song says about dogs and what the record says about dogs and humans, perhaps, or animals and humans?
Yeah. Well, dogs provide us with a particular kind of joy, or at least they do for me. And they don't ask for very much in return, just food, lodging, playfulness. But there's a couple lines in the song. They eat from
plastic cups.
They drink from plastic cups and eat off paper plates. This is sort of the proletariat theme emerging in that song again. Because I think dogs, like the proletariat, they just have to live with what they're dealt, and sometimes they're dealt something that's good and sometimes something that's bad, but they don't have a lot of control over the situation.
And something else that they don't harbor is ill will.
Yes,
which is the next
exactly.
line. They don't harbor a grudge or ill will later. And I think that with that lyric, that introduces a kind of contrast, juxtaposition of, well, here is what the humans like, and here is what dogs or bees or
Yeah.
non-human animals
Right.
are like.
Yeah.
Humans are pretty good at harboring ill will and
Absolutely.
resentment. And
Resentment. Yeah.
let's bring.
There is a distinction in several times in the record between dogs and people, or
Yep.
animals and people. You know,
Yep.
Specifically dogs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the dogs come up again in. Is it
$10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So most dogs have collars. They could try getting loose, and if it doesn't work, then the collar's just a noose.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit more on the dog proletariat analogy, perhaps via the song $10, which brings capital into the conversation as well, and those lyrics in it.
Right. Well, that song is might be a little confusing if you're just listening to it. I've got $10. The lyrics start out, I've got $10. We could try getting drunk. If it doesn't work, we could try again. Are we going to try getting drunk again? That's what it seems to suggest. But really, we're going to try to call our dealer again and see if they'll pick up the phone. That's what we're trying to do again. And so, I mean, I guess I use dogs in that second verse because, like an addict, you know, like the proletariat, they're not really in control of their situation, right? There are all these external forces that are like, you know, is the dealer going to be home? You know, will he answer the phone?
How much money do we have?
How much money do we have, right? Did we spend all of it on booze so we could feel, you know, relatively okay? And yeah, like dogs, you know, they have collars. They could try getting loose. If it doesn't work, the collar's just a noose, you know, well. Not unlike being a drug addict, I think, you know, and doing something where you can hang yourself, you know, and largely you're not in control.
This recurring theme is encapsulated in the image of the person without a home.
Oh yeah, on the cover.
Yes, on the cover.
Yeah.
Who has a sign saying that they're hungry and they're within a stadium.
Right.
You created that, of course.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a collage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could you expand a bit on that collage in relation to this recurring theme?
Yeah. So the sign that the homeless person is holding, what is it? It says, "Please feed me," or
it says, "I'm hungry."
I'm hungry. Yeah. It works with the title, Praegustator, because they're the food tasters for the royalty, right? And so the homeless person begging for food, even though it might be poisonous, right? Even though you're tasting it for the royalty, you know, this is the lengths to which you go to, you know, survive.
Yeah, I am hungry. There's still the need to be met, the
Exactly.
basic need.
And I will risk eating your poisonous food just so I can, you know, potentially keep surviving. And so in the stadium too, I thought, you know, stadiums are like, there's nothing more capitalistic than a stadium. Right.
Yes,
I mean,
the amount of money.
The money.
The taxpayers' money that goes into this hub. There's a level on which if one is aware of how the money is being spent in an unjust way, the collage speaks for itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing more emblematic of capitalism than stadiums, right? And so I thought it was really a really succinct way of sort of capturing that theme, you know, and putting the homeless person really huge right, in the stadium is like, this problem is so glaring, you know, the problems in society are so obvious and the solutions are so obvious, right? Don't spend billions of dollars on sports, you know, make it so there's no homeless people, you know, make it so people don't starve, you know. These things are, the solutions are easy, right? But nobody wants to solve those problems, really.
This is a good seg to Save the Bees,
Yeah.
where make a donation anonymously, fund a foundation philanthropically, like that segment. That is what I was immediately thinking of when you were saying that the problems are glaring and the solutions are simple. But then, particularly in another seg to Save the Bees, is we were just talking about $10 and the idea of trying again. So we have humans, there's various human characters that we encounter on this record, and what they are trying to do is quite different from what the bees are trying to do here. In the beginning of the song, they cannot tell us why they are dying, but then at the beginning of the second verse, they try to tell us where they are going. So the bees cannot communicate with the humans, but they seem more like the dogs. They seem to be in alignment in some way. What they are doing seems less at odds with itself and perhaps more functional than
Right.
what the humans are doing, who in the meantime are clearly not innocent in this
Right.
situation of the bees disappearing.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on how Save the Bees pushes the conversation that the record is encouraging us to have? How does Save the Bees push that conversation forward?
Well, the bees are unique in the sense that, well, maybe not unique, but they have a very sophisticated means of communication, right? And it's difficult for people to understand it. The song is sort of humorous, you know. It shouldn't be like taken as a real heavy song. It's humorous and sad, right?
Yes, it is.
Because it's so easy to save the bees, right? Stop using pesticides, preserve diverse, you know, ecological landscapes. You know, these things are obvious. The solutions to our environmental problems are also as obvious as our solutions to humanitarian problems. But the problem is human will is just not something that is easily changed. So I think the bees, you know, they could tell us that something is wrong, but we cannot understand it, right? Because we
don't want to.
We don't want to, right? It would interfere with how we live our lives.
Right. The next lyric, after they try to tell us where they're going, is dancing directions confounds our knowing. And I love musically how like the dancing of the bees
there's some
is evoked there.
syncopation.
Yeah.
In there
Yeah, and of course, there's that kind of thing happens throughout Kid Dakota. There's an analogous moment. It's all very intentional, and this is something that we've talked about in multiple interviews before. We were recognizing in the innovation interview that all Kid Dakota songs are very intentional, controlled, meticulously crafted, and often the material that's being dealt with is what you were saying then to do with life spinning off the rails. I feel here there is more of a focus on like humanity, like the human species spinning off the rails.
It's a little more, less sort of personal and more kind of global.
Yes, yes. But still there is this interesting juxtaposition of that being the material, and then you are meticulously crafting something meaningful of it, and perhaps even more so where you're saying the next set of songs are kind of like higher BPM and more dance. Well, one could dance to them.
It's going to be a dance party.
Yeah.
The next album.
Yeah. We were talking of when I lived with you. You wanted to write music that people could dance to.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah,
music
exactly.
is fun, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, why does it have to be so dire all the time? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Humans are going to carry on making a mess of things, but
might as well dance through the mess, right?
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
We have a willfulness problem.
Yeah. Right.
Which we are all prone to, but then things like looking at our relationship with non-human animals and deciding to be vegetarian or vegan, say, as you have done.
Yes.
But also stylistic changes. I like that this record begins with that thing I was
One
quoting.
apple.
Yeah, exactly.
Chaser.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a funny sample.
Yeah. Could you? So where is that from? And
there's this program. It's kind of like a DAW, a digital audio workstation. Reason it was called. I don't know if they even make it anymore. Okay. But deep within one of the sub-menus of like presets, I just found this thing. You know, I was like, what is this?
1 apple tastes good. 2 peaches taste better. 3 watermelons taste best.
And so I Googled it. I was like, is this from some show that I don't know that everybody else knows? And I couldn't find anything about it, so I just used it because I thought, this is perfect for this starting off this album, you know?
Preceding the lyric, make certain that you taste their food before they eat it.
Yeah.
But just like you were saying, Save the Bees is sad and kind of humorous.
Yeah.
It does start the record off on a more whimsical note than I was expecting, which I love.
Yeah.
And could you expand a little bit more on the whimsy of that and the significance of the whimsy, this whimsical way, and even the like having the massive person with the "I'm hungry" sign within the stadium. There's a similar juxtaposition of like what could be more serious and somber than this, and also it's whimsical.
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where sadness becomes so overwhelming that it cannot but become funny.
Right.
You know. I mean, clearly this is not the case, you know, in lots of situations, but in this particular instance, you know, that's how I feel about these things, I guess, is that there's a real gravity to problems that are important to me, but I mean, I think part of making it into art is that you make it meaningful in different ways. So it's not just sad; it's also funny. You know? One of the reasons I love the Silver Jews, which is really different than my music, but I just love how it's always sad and marginally tragic, you know, but also very funny. So,
and that is something that is like this record in particular, I think can be described in that way, even though sonically it doesn't sound like the Silver Jews.
Right. Yeah, doesn't sound anything like that. I think there was a turning point in my music. Maybe it's been there since the beginning, but definitely a little more humor in there now than, you know, historically, I guess.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. Like Sharing a Needle is funnier than So Pretty songs, even though there's like a kind of thematic continuity.
Yeah. I mean, whereas like So Pretty, you know, another sort of obvious allusion to drug addiction. there's nothing really humorous in that song, you know. Maybe the lines about Barbie, you know, that's maybe a little funny, but
Yeah,
sharing
you
a
can't
needle
help
is...
but be funny.
Yeah,
You are funny.
yeah, well, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, sharing a needle, that was... When I came up with that line, I was just like, wow, this is this is really silly. Because obviously sharing a needle is a stupid thing to do, you know. And I was like, well, let's just say it like it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you write these songs around a similar time? I know that Sharing a Needle and Thoughts and Prayers were a couple of songs that during the time that I lived with you, you were refining those songs.
Most of the songs are relatively new, and by that I mean in like the last 10 years. $10 is a very old song. That's from the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I suppose that does fit a little more with
that
like,
could
the
have
lyrical
been
content
So Pretty.
is like So Pretty, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it changed a lot since it was originally written in the 90s, but essentially it's still the same song. I have a lot of songs that I wrote in the 90s that I'm still like, this is going to go on this record, you know. I don't know. Some people, they sit down and they write all the songs for a new album, you know, at once after they finish their last album, and they're like, okay, time to make a new record. But I don't really work like that, I guess. I'm always like writing songs, and sometimes I get ahead of myself and start working on songs for a new record when I'm not even done with the last record, or have an idea of where a song should be, you know, 2 records out or something like that. But
Yeah. And then you'll sit with a song, and it was interesting for me to witness, like, when living with you, that we talk about the meticulousness of crafting the song. So I would hear this like slowly evolving, those like subtleties and nuances of say Sharing a Needle or Thoughts and Prayers.
Early
like in
in the
real
morning.
time, I would like witness
Yeah.
like the evolution of the song as you would play it on acoustic guitar and then refine. There's obviously a different type of crafting that's happening in the studio.
Yeah.
Oh, we should highlight that you have a new studio.
Yeah, right.
Which is affiliated with Blue Tree.
Blue Tree, which is a music school in South Minneapolis. A really rather large private music school. I think they have almost 600 students now. They just rented another building, which they use for performances. And so now I have moved a lot of my home studio equipment into that space. Yeah.
Yep. So Homesteader Studios, where this record was made, and many records have been made. They're produced for other people as well.
Yeah.
Now that equipment is
some of it's still at my house, but so there's like 2 studios now. Yeah. But yeah, it's
41st in Chicago.
41st in
Studio.
Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the new studio.
Yeah, it's a really great space.
And you produce records too.
Yeah.
So
produce, engineer, whatever people need.
How do people reach out to you if they want to work with you at Starling Studio?
My contact info is on my website, so just there, or Instagram, or whatever.
This process of meticulously crafting the song is a kind of focus of 2 of the songs, I feel, Splinter and Noise to Signal.
Yeah. Yeah, those 2 songs are a bit more personal in scope, thematically, I guess, than some of the other songs.
Yeah, I feel like if that is quintessential Kid Dakota and you as well, this meticulousness and crafting something thoroughly.
Yeah.
It's interesting how that comes through more so than before on those 2 songs. In Noise to Signal, all this feedback and distortion makes it hard to hear. If the noise drowns out the signal, will he disappear? So there's the risk of noise drowning out the meaningful communication that one hopes, if one just continues working at it, will be achieved. And then similarly in Splinter, every day another compromise. How much longer do your dreams have until they die? There's this. What do you have any thoughts about those two songs in relation to one another and how they relate to this slow process, keep on showing up, like the habit of coming back to taking the dogs for a walk, the habit of picking up the guitar or whatever instrument, or going to the studio again and working again and again. Let's do another take, even though what's the lyrics there? Force another take, words you cannot sing. Half-finished songs don't mean a thing. So what thoughts do you have about these two songs and what they're saying?
Well, Noise to Signal is about, that song is written about somebody else. So that's not really, I mean, there are parts of it that feel similar to my life, but that was more written about someone else. And Splinter is, I have felt like the character in Splinter, you know, but I don't wholeheartedly identify with that person, because that person is very, I don't feel like that, right? Like, there have probably been times in my life where I felt like, well, things are not good, you know. What are we gonna do? But now is not one of those times,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, because you are bringing things to fruition.
Yeah.
This record, for example.
Yeah, I feel I'm in a very good place, you know?
Yes. So it's interesting, the record ending with Splinter.
Yeah.
And so it ends with this metaphor of the human as a splinter. And with the title track, it begins with this metaphor of being blood while they are ticks. So these kind of bookend the record, being blood while they are ticks and being the splinter. What do you think about these two bookends? We have a human who is like a blood to the ticks, and then we have a human who's like a splinter, and then we encounter dogs and bees and so on in the meantime.
Right. I mean, I think by and large, you know, most humans and animals and insects are in the same camp. And then there are the uber wealthy who control everything. And they don't really care about the rest of life.
The ecosystem.
So I think there's a certain sadness that everyone should really profoundly feel for not only humans that are, you know, mistreated or not appreciated, but also animals, insects, ecosystems. You know, it's all of these things are precious, right? And it would be easy to affirm their preciousness if we wanted to, but we don't.
Yep. And as the character in $10 or the character that we encounter in Splinter, even if those characters, even if their lives are spinning off the rails and they're not necessarily making optimal choices, the bad choices of those characters are not what's leading to the extinction of the bees. And it's, again, the few that are in control and just with no empathy and no care for the impact of their actions on them.
Right. I feel like most bad decisions are a result of having bad options.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes.
Like, if people weren't forced to, you know, work 70 hours a week just to make a living, then they probably, you know, wouldn't resort to alcoholism or drug addiction or, you know, these other sorts of problems.
Yeah. And
So if the options were better, right, then I think everybody's lives would be better.
Yeah,
Less bad decisions would be made,
yeah, bad decision. I
Right,
was
yeah.
careful to.
Yeah, you don't want,
Yeah.
stigmatize,
Right.
any decision.
I can relate to the Splinter character. I'm pretty positive,
Yeah,
like driven person.
Yeah.
But the entire time that I've been back from being stuck in England during the pandemic, I've been trying to work on a book and just trying to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And I'm hungry. The kids that I have, they're hungry too. I
Right.
need to make the money. I'm not making anywhere near as much progress with the book I'm supposed to be writing
Right.
than I expected.
Right.
So again, that we exist in a context where I find myself having days when I'm like, how much longer do the dreams have until they die?
Yeah.
And there is something about this. It's a worsening situation.
Right.
I feel, and I.
Oh
and-
yeah. I think factually it's worsening on all fronts, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. In the Splinter song, I like the lyric about. I think it starts out, "Where will you go in the winter? Where will you stay until the thaw? Who do you know? You're just a splinter. How will you cope among the logs?" Right. So I like that image of the splinter and the logs, right? So you're just this tiny little piece of wood, like similar to the blood, in the first song in Praegustator, where you're just really small and insignificant, and you're just trying to, survive.
Makes me think of another favorite lyric of mine, of yours, the boat that's been moored in hope,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
wind is in its sails.
Yeah,
So again, there is a kind of profound sadness to all of this,
right.
and there is this will to live,
Yeah,
and this
right.
but the sea in which we're swimming, to switch the metaphor,
Yeah.
is not conducive to
No.
flourishing.
No,
for
but
all
then
the
it
fish.
gets funny, right? Because Jeff Bezos makes like $40,000 a second. Then that's hilarious, right? It's
Yeah.
just hilarious given everything that's difficult about life, and then we've set up this system where this happens. We set it up, and why can't we dismantle it? Because Jeff Bezos doesn't want us to.
Do you think it's interesting to recognize these truths and to feel the sadness, not just to kind of drown in the sadness, but to artfully kind of share
Yeah.
this awareness
Yeah.
in a record? Because obviously, as there is more and more awareness, the dynamic evolves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Where have the bees gone? Where will you go in Splinter? Where did everybody go in Dogs?
Oh yeah.
It struck me that there's this recurring questioning: where are we going? Where have we gone? Where will we go?
Right.
Seems like that's not intentional, but that is a recurring question. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I just think, it's woven into the fabric of life is loss and emptiness, right? And you can't have being without non-being, presence without absence. So, I mean, it's just a condition that you continually have to deal with, right? Where did your former self go? Like your loved ones, the reality you knew. I mean, change is absolute, right? There's nothing that doesn't change, and yet everything about being a human is trying to preserve presence and make things endure. So I think it's a difficult theme to avoid, you know.
Change is a given, and for as long as we remain anything like we are as a species, then our resistance to change and our desire for things to endure as they have known them is to be taken as a given too.
Yeah, I mean, that's surviving, you know. I mean,
Thoughts and Prayers is an interesting one. I think it's the only one that we haven't spoken about in detail yet. And
yeah, that was initially going to be on Denervation.
yeah, this Jesus cannot fix my leg.
Yeah.
Is that I have Denervation written next to that lyric. So,
You're a very astute listener, Simon. Grad school served you well.
well, same. This Jesus cannot fix my leg. So, of course, as established, Denervation was related to the cycling accident. I think Thoughts and Prayers fits more on this record.
I think so,
Perhaps you agree.
too.
So how does it end up on this record as opposed to Denervation?
It just didn't feel... It felt too aggressive to be on Denervation. Maybe aggressive is not the right word, or not the only word, but it felt too... It wasn't personal enough, you know? It seemed... wasn't sad enough.
Yeah.
It was a weird angle. When I think about a collection of songs, I'm like, does this make a square or a circle? And it just stuck out wrong, you know?
Yeah. This is what made me remember that I Was in Love with Life fits with a lot of the things that we were discussing in the Denervation interview. And just to recap briefly, there was... and also so the focus on science.
Right.
They say no to science, to evidence and experiments, but still take the medicine and see the surgeon whenever they get sick.
Yeah.
So in Denervation, though, there is this awareness, as we were discussing centrally last time, of the limits of what science as like a body of knowledge can do.
Right.
And in situations such as when you have your cycling accident and you're being... and that's when we want science to come through and make me able to walk again.
Yes.
And what you were initially being told is there was no knowing ahead of time whether you would ever be able to walk again following that accident.
Yeah, without a brace, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here there's maybe more trust in science.
Yeah, definitely.
And the idea that, okay, when someone who is referring to, send thoughts and prayers, if they have the cycling accident, then they would like to turn to the doctor and science to solve the problem.
Right.
So perhaps by this point there is a little bit more confidence and faith that there is a way through, and it's not the thoughts and prayers.
Right. I mean, insofar as this is more kind of a global, less personal record, this song fits much better there.
Totally.
You know, with Thoughts and Prayers being such a theme of late, and, you know, catching so much, flack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against Thoughts and Prayers. I just think oftentimes they're a poor substitute for what would actually be a meaningful change, right?
Taking action.
Yeah. Let's make some gun laws, you know, rather than just offering thoughts and prayers. So that might do something, you know?
Absolutely. It struck me that there's a interesting juxtaposition between, again, this lyric, it sounds like something I ought to believe, but I can't because I don't. And then save your thoughts and prayers, save them for someone who cares, because I don't.
Right.
The I don't is more assertive and confident. It's not the case that thoughts and prayers can solve everything. That sounds like something I want to believe, but I can't because I don't. Like, I'm choosing not to believe that because I have more faith in us to solve these problems than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely a difference there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have Adam Levy and who
Brent
else?
Patchkey.
Yep, playing some guitar.
Yep.
On this song, and we also have Lars again, who's playing drums throughout, playing guitar on
Noise to Signal.
Noise to Signal, and that's everyone apart from you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all the instrumentation is you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, do you have anything to add about how these guitarists, these three guitarists, wind up making the contributions that they do to those two songs?
Yeah. Well, on Noise to Signal, Lars was like, I think I have a part for this song. And I'm like, okay, record it. So he recorded it on his own and he gave it to me, and I was like, it was very different than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And initially I was like, okay. And then I sat with it for a while, and then I was like, wow, this part's awesome. So then I actually added it to another part of the song where he hadn't even recorded it. I used it in the outro as well. So Lars is, he's an awesome musician, and it's really a joy to play with him. And Adam Levy is an old friend, and I was in his band for a while, the Honey Dogs, and he was in Kid Dakota for a while. And one day a few years ago, he came over and just recorded a bunch of stuff for that song, Thoughts and Prayers. And Brent Patchkey, he also an old friend who used to live in Minneapolis. Now he lives in LA. And he's actually Pharrell's guitar player, which I guess is probably a pretty good gig. But he recorded those and sent them to me. And, they definitely, those guitar parts make Thoughts and Prayers a lot more interesting and multi-dimensional, I think. And so one thing I wanted to mention is that for the album release show, Lars and I are going to use backing tracks for the first time we've ever done that. I've often wanted to venture down that road because Kid Dakota, I make these kind of lush arrangements in the studio, and then historically it's usually been a two-piece.
Yes.
And it's very different.
You and a drummer.
Yeah. It ends up being so different than how the albums sound. So Lars suggested, why don't we play the backing tracks? I think it'll be fun and something new. And I think it'll be, more epic sounding. I'm like, yeah. And so we're embracing that.
I love that because Kid Dakota, like on the studio recordings, are so epic. So meticulously crafted and epic. And and managing to, and in a different way, the two-piece performances is still epic. But to be able to integrate the components that were impossible to recreate previously into still on the stage to performers. I'm excited for that.
And for a long time I was like, oh, this is cheating. But now I don't care. Who cares? It's most of the shows, big concerts that people go see, it's like 80% backing tracks. Like maybe the singer is singing,
Maybe the singer is singing.
But mostly they're just working on their, they're focused on their dancing, which is very labor intensive, and it's hard to sing and dance at the same time, as you well know.
I do lots of dancing, and some singing. So you have a bunch of further new material in your back pocket. Speaking of dancing, more danceable further material. At what stage are you already beginning to integrate some of that material into the live set, or will that be in the next phase?
We have played some of the songs live before,
Yeah.
but we're not going to play any of those songs at the
At
album
this
release.
particular, yeah, when you're
Yeah.
honoring this collection of songs.
Right. We're going to play all of these songs and then a couple songs from each of the other records.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I think we're going to play in the middle slot at the album release show because I really dislike playing last. And I want to have this show be a dance party at the end. So
Yeah.
Dylan Sulphur and his band, which is very, you know, he's a blues guitarist. I don't want to pigeonhole him as that's not all he is, but they play a lot of R&B, which will be, you know, I think a nice way to end the evening. And
Great.
I won't have to be working.
Yes, exactly. So what time roughly do you think the Kid Dakota set's going to be?
I would say 11,
Okay,
10:30.
right. And I love that then there's this passing the baton on to dance party, like live music to which people can dance.
Yeah.
And then next time we encounter Kid Dakota live post record release,
There might be a dance party.
There
in
might
and
be a
of
dance party
itself.
within the Kid Dakota set.
Yeah.
I'm really excited
Absolutely.
for that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that we are coming into land at the end of.
Someone is at the front door.
That's.
I hope it's pizza.
It is the. It's going to be Sim1 and my friend Dana, who have a new night at the VFW called Neon Noir.
Oh, nice.
Which they're about to do an interview about. I am really curious and excited about what the more danceable.
Someone is at the front door.
Yeah,
What-
the it's gonna sound more like a Hopefuls album, I think.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Yeah. I actually thought about revamping or, you know, putting that band back together in some.
for that material.
Yeah, but then I was like, nah, I'm just gonna keep it under the Kid Dakota moniker and diversify that, you know. And I'm not so concerned as I become more of an elder statesman. I'm not so concerned about having this, like, you know, really laser focused identity, you know. It's not as important to me. I just want to someday be in a place where I've recorded all the songs I've written,
Yes.
which seems to always be an ever like receding horizon, you know. Like, dang it, I got all those songs. And I guess it's a good problem, right?
Absolutely. You sound like a more hopeful version of the Splinter character when you say that.
Yeah.
And again, Noise to Single, half-finished songs don't mean a thing.
Right.
You are working through
Yes.
those songs in a meaningful way, and it sounds like you're enjoying the process.
Very much so, yeah.
Excellent. So, looking forward to the next time and dancing to Kid Dakota before too long. And in the meantime, honoring this, perhaps my favorite collection of Kid Dakota songs so far,
Well, thank you.
along
Thank
with some other past favorites on Friday, July 5th
Yes.
at ISO.
See you there.
See you there. I'm Simon Caldett. This is Back to the City. We'll be back next week with Dana and Simone, who are about to be in the studio with us right now.